This afternoon, you're going to have the opportunity to hear from leaders behind two of the merchant and acquisition activities that have become ever present within the payments industry as companies compete in a world moving towards software-powered, smart, sophisticated, and frictionless payments. I am pleased to welcome to the Secure Trust main stage Deirdre Cohen, Senior Vice President and Head of Acquiring at Visa, who will lead a discussion with two amazing dynamic leaders, Henry Helgeson and Philip McHugh of TSYS. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm a little old school today, so you'll bear with me with my cards because these are two really dynamic individuals and I want to make sure I get their introductions correctly. Because today we have two visionary leaders who are forging a path that's pushing the industry to think differently about this business. It's from making the right acquisition, providing software as a service, and an integrated sales approach for all merchants. And we want to provide, and wanting to provide the best consumer experience, you really need these tools to deliver that. So first we have Henry Helgeson, founder of Cayenne, and now president, or Executive Vice President of Merchant Solutions at TSYS. He started his career in payments in 1998, selling credit card terminals door to door to merchants. He actually recalls when one merchant said to him, I will accept credit card payments. I will accept a credit card when it's wrapped in a stack of cash. Later that year, he launched what was then Merchant Warehouse, the first company to provide easily accessible and affordable credit card processing services. Fast forward to 2005, Henry continued to be ahead of the industry and shifted the business model to focus on software instead of hardware. In 2012, Merchant Warehouse became Cayenne and was transformed into the company that TSYS purchased for more than $1 billion last year. When Philip McHugh arrived at TSYS in 2017, he brought more than 20 years of experience in international banking and payments. He knew that in order to survive, not only survive, but actually thrive, he needed to evolve what was then the TSYS merchant acquiring business and to become what it is today, a robust merchant services division. One of his first big changes was moving from a traditional processor business model to a software-centric company and getting the industry to understand why this is so important. So at this time, I'd like to welcome to the stage these two leaders who are not only innovators, but are challenging the status quo. Philip McHugh, President of TSYS Merchant Solutions, and Henry Helgeson, Executive Vice President, TSYS Merchant Solutions.
Hello.
Hey. So thanks for joining me. The days of the old cash register and knuckle busters are long gone, and I think many of us don't like to say that we actually remember those days. But the ever-evolving payments ecosystem we have today will be different in 6 months. And it's not business as usual. Companies must shift their mindset and think differently in order to survive. So with all this in mind, why the acquisition? So Philip, I'm going to ask you, why was the acquisition of Cayenne so important to TSYS?
Sure. No, it was a big deal. I think the first thing to start out is I actually started on the job 2 years ago, literally got thrown into the ETA, and my first meeting was with Henry. So it was a pretty successful meeting. But we'd known each other when I was at Barclays in the UK. I'd scanned the market multiple times looking for who were the really breakout players, and Cayenne just always stood out. So when I came to TSYS, great company, great customer service, great distribution, trusted processor in the industry. Had all these great things to like, and we'd made some good traction in the integrated space. But I'm dead set that we have to move from being processing oriented to software, software, software. And what we saw in Cayenne was a lot to like. It was a great business. It was one of the best platforms in terms of capability and architectural design that I'd seen. The rapport, the personal rapport with Henry was awesome. But two other things were really important was a culture that really matched, but also a way of delivering product and technology to win, which was also a factor. We weren't just buying physical things, we're buying a way of doing things, and that's been one of the biggest wins for us since the deal.
So one more question for you, Philip. So tell us the story, though. You're a year in, and you go to Troy Woods with this billion-dollar acquisition. So was that a tough sell, or? No,
it was the easiest. It was an easy sell. I think the first thing we did is I was very, very clear on, look, what are we good at TSYS? And like I said, there's a lot to like. We had a lot of great assets and a great reputation, but we were also very open and honest about what are we not good at. And I fundamentally believe that the market was changing. We have to be good at verticals. We have to be good at data. We have to be flexible. There's a lot of change going on. And the players that can deliver that across the board are going to be winners. And Cayenne really stood out. We were very active with them very, very early. We'd built a relationship, and we were looking at this as a growth play. We want to go big or go home in this industry. We were clear about that. Troy then had the opportunity to meet Henry too, and we were both with no hesitation from the start on the deal. It was a tough deal to get through. He was picky, but we got there. We got there.
So Henry, what was it like to sell your company? And dare I ask, have a boss for the first time in 20 years? What's that been like?
Well, my boss isn't too bad, especially when he's sitting next to me and I'm speaking about him in public. No, it's actually, that part's been really easy, and it's actually been fun. We joke around about it in government. Stuff may roll downhill. In private companies, it rolls uphill, or in the private sector. So now I got somebody else to take my problems to, which is awesome. But the story itself was I think, interesting, pretty amazing how it came together. We had been in the market for a few months, and it's a deeply personal decision when you're going to sell your company after 20 years. I mean, some of the employees have worked with me for 18, 19 years. So we kind of looked at it as doing this together. And it was really an 11th hour deal that happened, a little last minute deal that happened here. I remember we were going through this process, and you meet with 25, 30, I don't know how many suitors. We were in it on Monday morning. We were leaving one of those meetings. I thought we had months to go, and I remember my CFO looking at me going, this thing's over by Friday. And that's kind of when it set in, right? After 20 years of doing this, and every day is different, but they're also sort of the same. It was interesting that it was going to be very different by, within 5 days, 4 days. And really what it came down to was this deal was kind of moving in a different direction. We were fortunate enough to have a lot of good bidders at the end, and really nice people on all sides around us. But the TSYS vision and how the companies fit together was just way better than anything else I've seen. When you lay the two companies over each other and you put the puzzle pieces together, you can't even see daylight through them. They really fit together nicely, and we had a strong feeling that they were going to take care of us, but you guys weren't in the lead there. So while our banker was on a flight, Philip called me, and we had an intense 45-minute negotiation there. He was, former CFO here. You think he'd get the numbers right. He actually came down by accident on one of his napkins. He snapped a picture of, I was like, I like you, but I don't like you that much. I've never been through this, but furiously texting the bankers and board members since I was on the phone, and getting some funny text backs like, the numbers after the decimal are meaningful, don't screw this up. Yeah. And finally we landed on a number that you had no authority to offer, and I had no authority to accept. Not at all. Now we got it done.
We were literally, we were really motivated to make this work. Because the conversations we had were about winning. Like they put synergies and costs and organizational charts, but we talked about putting things together and beating the market. We talked about having kind of killer apps, and we talked about growing and investing in the Genius platform. So there's a real passion there, but it was very competitive, and Henry gets full credit for instigating our little texting session, and I was literally writing down, cash equity, Henry, private equity owners, employees, on a napkin, and then taking a photo and texting it to him, and then calling Troy and going, "This is what I did." It worked out in the end, though. So
It did.
Well, in the time we've spent together, spent with you, you can see there's a really great energy between both of you. And Philip, you come from a larger company, well established over a period of time, and that has an organizational culture. And Henry, you built this up, over the last 20 years and infused your organization with your culture. Like, how did you bring those two things together? Was that really an important part of your thought process? And so I think it'd be great to hear your thoughts on that.
You want to give it a shot, or?
Sure. Well, first of all, I think it was pretty easy. I think the cultures married up very, very well. Everybody was focused on talent and the people to start with, and that's, was the core of both companies, which I think it made it pretty easy. In fact, after we announced the deal, the first two people to hit the ground in Boston, where our headquarters is, was HR, trying to sign retention agreements and tell everybody that nobody was going to leave or get fired. And I think that really goes to the kind of core values of TSYS, where they do care a lot about the employees, and we did too. So in that way, I think it was easy. In other ways, the companies were a little different. For example, TSYS, and one of the reasons why I liked this deal was we had created this great product, but we didn't have scale sales around it. We had kind of overbuilt and outstripped our ability to sell and market the product, and TSYS was a sales machine, scale sales machine. And for Cayenne to kind of absorb that sales methodology took a little bit. And then I think on the technology side, it was an adjustment for TSYS to start to do it the Cayenne way.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. You can't underestimate how important that is. There's just a litany of deals out there where a great company just gets crushed, and you kind of lose the heart and soul of what you bought in the first place. And so I wouldn't say we were aware of it. I'd say we were hyper focused on it, and we use the term from the start that TSYS is going to integrate into Cayenne as much as Cayenne is going to integrate into TSYS. And actually, one of the bigger issues I had was less some of the kind of Cayenneers worrying about their role. I had TSYS people saying, "Well, what happens to us?" And we really focused on that we're changing. We're not just buying something to plug in. We're changing our company, and this is part of the journey. And I think one of the things we did from the outset is due diligence. You spend months hammering away just every question. It's exhausting for the company that's selling, and then you feel the pressure to go right to synergies and start hammering away at things, and you've preset all your ideas. And we actually said slow down. The first 90 days, Henry and his team do reverse due diligence on us. We got teams together and just talk to each other, really make sure we understand, because we all think we understand stuff, and my product's better than your product, and I do it this way, you do it that way. And we spent a lot of time doing that, and when that all came out, we then sat down, and I think it was a single day, we wrote out the entire organization chart, we wrote out the priorities, we literally typed out the announcement, but only after we'd taken the time to really make sure we knew each other from both sides. I think that helped a lot.
So you both talked about the industry shift away from hardware to software. So let's talk about what that really means. What do you think that really means?
I see it, the more and more I see two things that, one way I see the market and one way I'm starting to describe our overall business. So one is in the market, you can spend days and days trying to analyze every new technology, every new shiny bell, and you'll lose yourself. You go completely crazy. To me, the overarching thing is the market has gotten much more complex. Everyone wants more data. No one wants to touch the data. The way you make payments and take payments has just exploded in form factors. Channels, where do you go online, in-app, and in-store? So how does that journey start and end is more complicated. The players are more complicated. We've got to be more cost efficient, but I've got to specialize by vertical. All of this is what's driving the people have to make it simple. Merchants don't care about all our cool stuff. They just want to keep selling. So the players that can make it simple for them, make their lives easier, are going to win. And you only do that with great software, not just on hardcore processing. So we see the business as the big processing layer, authorization, clearing, and settlement. We see the payment integration layer, where you go in and you grab the data, you can create lots of capabilities, and you have the kind of software as a service layer where you're going beyond payments. And we think about the market in that way, and the Genius platform and the Cayenne culture was critical to leading and owning on that payment integration layer, but also not only winning with our ISV partners, but also with Vital, being able to build out the software as a service layer as well, and which came with the iMobile 3 transaction. But that wouldn't have worked if we didn't have the Cayenne technology culture to help scale it as well. So those are some thoughts on it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was actually just in a meeting, and one of my team members actually said it best. He said, it used to be where the three most trusted people to a small business was the attorney, the accountant, and the banker. And now today it's the attorney, the accountant, and the POS vendor. Yeah. Right? And that's really sticky. It's really powerful. And if the payments companies figure out ways that they can actually, I think the high ground here is if you can make that POS vendor sell more product because you've enhanced their product. If you make it a better product and a better consumer experience, and you do that through software. You don't do it through service. I think the old school mentality in the business was good service was answering the phone as quickly as possible when you created a problem that the merchant was calling in about. Now with software, we're trying to make it so the merchant doesn't have those problems, so they don't need to make that call. And how do you do that in a way that enhances the value of the ISV's product with them?
Right, because in reality, the term we use, payments should be seamless. That really is the reality of what merchants are looking for. Like payments should just be part of the solution. They're looking for solutions. They're not just looking for a transaction.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So beyond software, like what other solutions or trends are you seeing in the market that you think, like Cameron, we can start with you, that will ultimately shift the benefits towards merchants?
Yeah, I think there's a number of things, and we're seeing it every day, and I think we've been seeing it slowly for a couple of years as we're boiling the ocean as an industry in some ways. One of the things that I think was broken as well, and I think everybody knows this, the merchant onboarding and servicing experience was never great. And I think that really came to light when Square started to get traction and started to scale. I think that was a big uh-oh moment for everybody in the industry. And trying to fix that, particularly through payment facilitator platforms,